Hello, everyone, and welcome to our talk series celebrating leaders who care. My name is Nafisa Devan. I'm a psychologist and social media associate at EAP-India, which stands for Employee Assistance Program. We provide services to employees and the families to promote their emotional and mental well-being. We have a presence pan India and globally. Today, we have the privilege and the opportunity to have with us Ms. Feroza Engineer. Feroza is university rank holder and an honors graduate in psychology with a master's in counseling psychology. She is an ICF certified coach who has coached over 86 unique individuals in the last 7 years, covering a wide gamut of people from CXOs to first-time managers, professors, startup founders, tech wizards, women entrepreneurs, IS officers, pro athletes, and the LGBTQI profession. Feroza specializes in creating leading learning and growth journeys. She has worked with over 380 organizations and trained over 2 lakh individuals across multiple industries, covering countries like India, USA, China, Singapore, UAE, UK, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. A very warm welcome to you, Feroza, and thank you so much for removing the time to do this for us.
Thank you, Nafisa. Always a pleasure and an honor to have conversations that really matter or conversations that hopefully will add some value. So thank you. Thank you to the team at EAP for doing this.
Thank you. So, before we go ahead, I have seen that you've done so many wonderful things, right? And like I just said, that you've worked with insane amount of people across the world, right? So, I wanted to understand what got you started on this journey, right? If you can walk us through your work trajectory so far as a coach, while coaching as an industry.
Sure. So I've been in the learning and development space for the last 21 years, and I've kind of been on both sides of the table. Now, what that means for people is I have been in core HR, L&D, HRBP, insight-facing HR, L&D roles, and I have been on the P&L, sales, consulting, training side of things as well. One of my most foundational experiences of why I am here today is my stint at Dale Carnegie Training. You can see Dale Carnegie's photograph right here.
Yeah.
Next to my parents. So that should tell you that instead of having a temple or a god, I have someone that I look up to. So training facilitation has always been a core, and I have been doing this. But somewhere I would say 7 to 8 years ago, when I was at Target, I was working at Target, leading their leadership development and learning culture. Around that time, one of my mentors, Pankaj, and I have written about this on LinkedIn last year as well. He actually, in one of our conversations, he just like nudged me that, hey, have you thought of coaching? You are leading teams. You have been doing this leadership development, learning culture. How about coaching? And it was literally like that 30-second plug in our meeting that got me thinking. And I literally gave myself that chance. I got into coaching not knowing that this is what I'm going to be doing or this is something that's going to engage me. But I'm glad. I'm glad I did what I did. Because when I stand here now before you talking about things, especially my entrepreneurship journey, um, coaching really helped me in these 3 years. So a lot of people in my community know my pandemic story, but let's just say, Nafisa, I was ready to take my very first study sabbatical. It was planned, organized, visas, tickets. My family members also got excited. They decided they'll join me. So 2020, literally from February to September 2020 was going to be like a study sabbatical for me. Neuroscience, coaching, facilitation. It's going to travel to the US, UK, come back. Almost thanks to Rona. And literally in the month of March, after wallowing, crying, worrying what will happen, I don't have income, family to support. That's when I just got up one day, and one of my mentors, Madhav, he just said, "Ke chalo, start on your own, start coaching, see where it goes." So I changed my credentials on LinkedIn. I worked around my brand a little, and I just started coaching pro bono. Little did I know that it was going to catapult and boomerang the way it did. And these 3 years of entrepreneurship have been a blessing, because now I run two organizations, one that is purely into coaching one on one, and one that does teaching assignments, workshops, content creation. So, yes, I'm very, very thankful to the power and the magic of coaching to kind of get me here.
Sounds like such an amazing journey, right? I think we all just need that one person who can just push us into, just being ourselves. I think we all have that potential. We just need to have that one person who believes in us. It sounds like an amazing journey.
Yeah, that's why I'm turning red and I'm getting giggly because I'm like, did this really happen? It did. So yeah.
Fantastic. So then, what has been your experience working in the corporate sector so far? Since you've started working on your own, you've started your own thing in terms of training, in terms of key coaching. What do you feel like has been your experience?
Sure. And maybe I'll talk about the last 3 to 4 years because that's recent and I'm hoping that's relatable to people as well. Um, Coaching is not something that people proactively want to do. Yet, if you are able to find a coach that you're able to gel with, there is that chemistry, there is that little relatability. Then a coach can be not just a sounding board, but your cheerleader, your little learning nudger. And a coach can also be a reflection in a lot of ways. So when I started my journey, of course, that was a couple of years ago. But in the last 3 years, what has really stood out for me and for my team in the area of coaching, that when HR or learning and development as a team, when they sponsor a leader's coaching, when the leader is not paying from their pocket, but HR or a stakeholder or a leader, then goals are defined. Then the outcome where we want to go is defined. It's a little clear because there is that little trust from the organization. Yet, almost 50% of my clients pay from their pockets. They are individual clients. And in that data, in that pattern, what we have noticed is maybe what the client comes into the coaching conversation, the first conversation, the goals, the outcomes, what I'm looking to, I want to achieve this, I want to change this, can you help me with this? They come in with these big, audacious goals. Yet, while we are going through the journey, second conversation, third, almost by the time our pattern shows us, by the time we reach the third or the fourth conversation, that's when the cat gets out of the bag. That's when the real issues emerge. And I say this with a sense of security that at least in the last 3 years, the issue could be team related, could be environment related, system related. For example, I've gotten into a new role and it's a global role. I need to handle stakeholders globally. That's the North goal. But the actual issues are around trust building, are around self confidence, are around better listening skills. So I always find myself in my coaching journeys, especially at the very beginning, to really highlight and understand the individual first, keeping them in the center of their environment, and what are all the other things that are overlapping for them. So usually it's not what is discussed in the first conversation, but hoping that you find a coach or you find a journey where you are actually able to uncover the fundamentals. So that's why you might have seen on LinkedIn also, I have this entire series called Fix Your Fundamentals First. Because if we keep revisiting that, then they'll keep emerging. So I think coaching is a fine balance in that. Fixing our fundamentals not so easy, not something that's gonna happen. But what can I do every day differently that can help me move towards that?
Yeah, sounds very interesting because then, there's so much to explore. Like you said, that first conversation and where you end up is always different, which sort of would keep your work also very exciting because you never know what you find out in the person, where it's going to lead, what exactly will come out, right? And I think then you have to be on your feet, you have to be very creative, you have to constantly just, be attentive about where can you go, what training can you provide, what works for one person. So I think it sounds also quite interesting and exciting then.
I wish it was. No, it is. Yeah, it is.
But then I think you work with a lot of HR managers and leaders, right? And as you must be aware right now, there's like a lot of environment about layoffs, and there's a little bit of tension going on in the environment. Big giant tech companies are laying off employees in thousands, and these employees are ones who've been with the organization for years, 12 years, 20 years, and they've just been laid off simply because the CEO couldn't manage the company, or they couldn't understand the vision. So amongst such a climate, then what do you believe managers, leaders can do that helps ease the morale or the productivity for those who stayed back? Because I'm sure they must also be constantly fearing whether they are the next people who would be laid off.
Yeah,
How do you believe managers can handle this situation better?
sure. And maybe here my answer is going to be a little different, um, especially the way you kind of stitched your question together also. My first concern would genuinely not be that how are we taking care of the people who are there, who haven't left or whom we haven't kind of laid off. What do we do to keep them at least personally for me as a philosophy, that would not be my starting point when I consult with organization. And I have done work in this space closely while working with CHROs, that more than the communication positioning of people who are left behind, more than that, can we look at differently how layoffs could be handled?
Hmm.
Because what we are left with, the people who are left behind, what we all are left with is sometimes a huge sense of ambiguity,
Hmm.
or also a huge sense of regret.
Hmm.
I've even written about this, that regret as an emotion is so difficult to even understand, forget manage. And while we are doing our research, we also realize that there are different types of regret which we didn't know. And as an organization, you're going to deal with that riffraff. But how about we learn from this mistake, or we learn from how we did these layoffs, how they were, and maybe focusing not just on how you are dealing with your people, but are your systems and processes also aligned in a way to support that? Now, what do I mean? I'm sure you must have heard that during layoffs or any kind of attrition period, you have exit interviews,
Correct.
right? People interview you just 2 days before you're exiting. I'm like, that is so pointless. What are you interviewing the person? The person has emotionally checked out, mentally checked out 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Now you have thrown them out. So physically checked out as well. Now is not a time for you to do your exit interviews. So there are a lot of organizations that overnight kind of even relooked at this practice and set up practices called like stay interviews or well-being interviews. Can you do that mid through the year? Check in with your high potentials, check in with your talent, do a stay interview, have a process, have a mechanism around, hey, how is it being here? What would you like us to change? Something around the self, the team, and the organization. These are like literally the three pillars that a team member would relate to, right? I'm leading myself. If I'm an individual contributor or a leader, I'm leading my team, and maybe I'm leading my business, my service, my department. So, what are some questions you can ask around that so that you ensure that this individual stays? And you don't have to do this nonsense during exit interviews. So maybe a little rework, just not your people strategy, but also your processes, these few little practices that you are doing. Second, being very mindful on your hiring strategies. If you look at the pattern that's in front of you, all these large conglomerates just 12,000 layoff, 15,000, 300, 800. How did you mindfully plan your hiring? Was your hiring strategy not just related to your business strategy, but was it also related to your values, also related to what the organization stands for? So maybe we revisit that as well. Thirdly, let's say if you are not able to do any of these things, I can understand you're not able to do any of this. Then at least while you are laying off people, your messaging, your communication. For example, I think Airbnb a year and a half ago when they had their riff, when they had their layoffs, it was a very, very clear cut, transparent, yet emotionally laden email from their CEO, genuinely talking about the steps that have been taken and the steps that are going to happen. Because when we are going through uncertainty, we are not clear with what's going to happen.
Correct.
So, to your question, how are we dealing with the people who have stayed back? So, communication in a way that creates psychological safety and doesn't create more fear where people are actually thinking, "Acha, mera number kab aayega?" Like literally. So, communication here plays a very big role, and communication that is collaborated and compounded. It's not just HR's job. Are your CopCom PR teams aligned? Are your other corporate enabling services, finance, legal, are they aligned? Your leadership, top down, is that aligned on why you're doing what you're doing? So I would say it takes time, but hoping that you keep team members at the center of this entire experience and not just.
Correct. I really like what you said that, exit interviews are quite pointless. Rather, we should have like state interviews. You check up on your employees. What is it that they like, and build upon that. In fact, I think every day you have to like, make these changes and it has to be an everyday process rather than waiting for something to come up and then take care of them. So it's actually quite a fresh perspective to even the layoffs, because what in fact when I was reading in my head also the first thing came up is this that what about the employees who stayed back, so we only care about them when there's a crisis rather than on an everyday basis. And I see that you actually speak about all of this quite vocally on your LinkedIn. I personally loved going through your posts and reading about it. They were super insightful.
Thank you. Thank you. I know people keep, people say that, Arey, you just have like 10,000, 11,000 followers on LinkedIn. Arey, you should be having at least 1 or 2 lakhs. I'm like, I will tell you how engaged these 10,000 people are. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's because you come from your experience, right? It's not just something that you are preaching on LinkedIn. It's something that you genuinely believe, you practice, you make it a point to have it in your own training, in your own coaching experience as well. And I think that is what makes the content more relatable as well. Like we can see that it's a very practical, it's a very doable content that's out there.
Thank you for that, Nafisa.
So out of all the things that I've read, I think the one thing that I really enjoyed reading about is where you talk about the everyday inclusion. I read a couple of posts on that, and I personally found it super effective and actually very relevant, right? So can you tell us a little about it? What do you mean by everyday inclusion, and what are the things that organizations can do for that?
Sure, sure. So maybe a little backstory of why I am so passionate about this space. Um, it took me almost 22 years to figure out my sexual orientation. I know standing here now I'm saying it, but there is also still that little dub 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 dub, that happens. And I think just that little aspect that for someone like me, apparently I come from a place where I had exposure growing up. Apparently, I came from a place like Bombay, which is assumed to be diverse, XYZ. So I always felt that if someone like me took almost 22, 23 years to figure out that, okay, I'm not straight. No, I like women. No. If this happened to me, and cannot tell you the number of discriminatory experiences, whether it is friends canceling on you, whether it's people just stop talking to you after they've discovered what they have, or people don't include you in gatherings, or, like, I know these things sound really small, but I would always sit back in college or, just in my first job, I would go like, it's not so difficult to include people even if you don't understand how different they are from you, you can still acknowledge and accept. Like, sometimes I feel people always go like, no, 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 I don't understand all of this. It's okay. I don't. But you don't have to understand everything.
Correct.
You can acknowledge, you can accept, and then maybe later you can figure it out in your own manner. And when I started this entrepreneurship journey, coaching was a natural business line that picked up dama dam dama. Like I out of the 6-member team that I have currently, I don't have anybody for business development. I don't.
Okay.
Purely because it's organic. It is. I'm thankful for that. But our data started showing us in 2021 that the kind of queries I started getting for business through LinkedIn, through Instagram, they were also around this DNI space. Because people naturally assume, Acha, okay, if you are from the community, you will be an expert.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Ask anybody else who's from the community, are they an expert? And that's why personally, I don't even believe in this funda of master class. Or, like there's a master class on DNA. I'm like, there's nobody who is a master. We all are still learning.
Correct.
This abbreviation might, like, earlier it was LGBT, LGBTQ, LGBTQIA. One client in a conversation goes like, yeah, that, just tell me a little more on the policies of LGTV. I was like, where do I even start with you? You even got the abbreviation wrong. So all these experiences, Nafisa, they started adding up for me. And I'm like, one side, organizations are naturally calling me that, Acha Feroza, we have Women's Day coming up. Can you talk about this? Or, okay, Feroza, we are celebrating June, Pride Month. Can you come over and talk to us about unconscious biases? That will take care of our DNI agenda. So a lot of these agenda checklist wala items. And in 2021, somewhere in April, when I was discussing this with my team, that what can we do? Like, I don't want to just create workshops or create content just because I'm from the community and there is this relatability. That's why people are calling. And in that team discussion is where we came up with the idea that forget policies for a moment. Forget the government regulations for a moment. 377 nikal gaya, people are assuming Abhi Feroza, you can get married. These are basics.
Correct.
People's understanding has been brilliant around what you are doing, chuchu cheche now. Now you can get married. And these are well-educated, exposed individuals, right? So we are like, our country is not legally, first of all, binding in any of this. Axis Bank ने ऐसा वो billboard पे रख दिया that we will open same-sex partners का account. Insurance वालों ने डाल दिया billboard पे. Right? Versus, my whole intention was that before you start creating policies in an organization, before you sit down and create a diversity and inclusion agenda, all of these things are going to take time. Like they are going to, like it will be literally a 5 to 6 year roadmap. So before we, kind of get into all of this, how about if I were to teach you, or if I were to kind of facilitate that, what are some simple things we can do on an everyday basis to first be inclusive ourselves? So there is this research that you will see that Harvard has done around this space of inclusion, where they talk about three fundamental things: inclusive language, inclusive knowledge, expertise, like right here, and three, inclusive authenticity. So when we are using inclusive language words, are we using us? Are we using we? Are we using the right pronouns? Small, small. Are we still using words like the manpower in this organization? Chairman, hello, good morning, guys. Again, I know these are giggly small things, but this is how culture molds itself. This is how what you hear becomes part of your nomenclature, becomes part of your narrative. So language, knowledge, and expertise. Maybe all your leaders, your team members may not have any clue about what is this LGBTQI, kya hota hai, bias, none of that. So maybe can we educate them? Can we all accept that there are more than 300 biases, more than 300 type of biases, and we all are biased. We all are. But how do we still work towards that with inclusive communication? Maybe if you assume that the person is a male and not a female and you've gotten stuck there, sorry, you can just pause and go like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. If you don't mind me, tell me this a little bit more, because we feel odd, we feel weird. So what can we do to break that, to make people feel comfortable? And the third piece, authenticity. If you don't like the dress someone's wearing, you think people who are come to office dressed in tattoos, you have some other angle around that. You might not want to give the cream project to a mother who's just come back from maternity leave. What are these biases? What are you sitting with? Let the person be their authentic self, but are you being your authentic self? So the series that I did on LinkedIn spoke about all simple everyday aspects of you first being inclusive yourself, then understanding policies, procedures, kya karna, all of that. But if you're not kind, if you're not inclusive, if you don't take a pause once in a while and ask someone a question or let them talk, then you are going to be spiraling in your own little bias. So, yeah.
Correct, absolutely. And I think it also then, taking this way also helps us solve the problem from the internal way, right? Because all of these policies, and like you said, that even I've noticed June is the time where everyone will suddenly become very accepting and very inclusive of everything. And it's the same with everything. I think anything that's on a very minority level, be it mental health, be it DNI, be it anything, even for women hiring, like they would hire a couple of women just to show that, our organizations have women, but then internally there is no space for them, there is no provisions that is made for them, the language that we use. So I absolutely agree that, we need to get that change on an everyday basis. And that also truly then shows whether you truly care about it, or is it like an advertisement that you're doing, or is it just, like you said, the checklist that, everybody knows that you are. Because I think I've seen so many products that are now using same sex, or women working as a way of promoting their product, and they would use yeah, right, and there won't be any relation with the product and the tagline. But still, they've just somehow, because they know that's the selling point, they know right now, that there's a environment for it, things are changing. So I think I love that concept. That's why personally I wanted to put that question in because I really like that take of yours. And so this brings me to my next question about women. Then you know that how many women CEOs or leaders have you worked with? You feel like at a senior level, at a higher level, women are breaking that glass ceiling, or it's still just like the checklist that we're saying that organizations are saying that we have women CEO, but then are they really given that CEO respect? Are they really getting looked up as a CEO? What is your take on it?
Sure. Again, not as easy as it sounds. Um, it's an evolution, if I'm using a milder word. And to maybe just give you some hard examples, hard facts for other organizations that have tried this. For example, Sodexo. Sodexo has been doing this for the last almost 20 to 23 years, where from their entire distributed workforce, they had an aim that we should have at least 60-40% ratio, 60 male, 40 female. And of course, because of the nature of the job, more physical, hands-on. Imagine this little charter they set out 22 years ago. And currently, they are 38% women ratio. Point being, time lagta hai. Because it's not just about you making space at a leadership level, but it's at a very much ground level, which starts from school. At school, we are facing exclusion. Or sometimes, sadly, you will see in certain co-ed schools also, we will, as women, we will face integration, that there will be a big group of boys, and you will see these girls sitting in their little group on their side. We are part of the group, but we are not actually included. We are integrated somehow when we are, it's like an example that I use, that when you go for any party, like, Sham ko when you go out for a party and a family party, you will always see this cute little group of oldies. They are part of the party, but they have this little group on the side where they are integrated. They are not naturally included in the whole party. So literally a lot of change first needs to happen at a grassroots level, dheere dheere, right? Also, I really resonate with what Indira Nooyi says, that if you look at a woman's biological clock, and if you look at a corporate ladder leader ka clock, complete clash पर है. By the time we are 20, 21 and we get into our first job, we want to prove ourselves. There is already this nonsensical pressure of marry. Chalo, let's say arranged marriage, love marriage, you find your partner 25, 26, 27, whatever. You got married. By that time, you are ready for your second promotion, hopefully, right? You want to make a mark. Ideally, you are transitioning into a different role. Again, data shows that's when you transition in being a leader, first time leader. अभी उसमें बच्चा. Then finally that happens, and when your child is in college, that's when you are ready to lead the organization. COO, CEO role ke liye women are getting ready. Again, another biological clock. So how do we change that? I don't think there is a simple answer, but the complicated, more nuanced answer is all of us are in this. That's why when we talk about women leadership development programs, which again, personally, I'm not a big fan of, because I'm like, we need men as allies. We need children as allies. We need everybody as allies to kind of go through this. My data tells me almost 83% of my one-on-one individual client list are women. Women leaders, CXOs, CHROs, mid-manager to senior manager. Again, like I mentioned earlier, in the first two conversations, the actual bold, audacious goal will come out that, okay, now I need to have a seat on the table. Literally, I will hear sentences like this in my first conversation. I want to have a seat on the table, Feroza. I want to be present there as an equal leader, not somebody who has been handed on, you know. But then the concerns, the issues are still different. So finally, through the digging, through the conversation, the concern will still be they don't let me talk, they talk over me. CEO, CXO is mansplaining, something that I am in a subject matter expert is, and here the MD is sitting and mansplaining. Or great at work, superb leader, no issues. Nobody respects me in my household. Nobody believes that I have gotten here. So these, once again, these goals are so bloody broad and audacious, corporate-wary goals. But the problems that are leading up to those goals are still the ones we need to take care of, are still the ones that are patterned, repeated, same. So I wish we reach a stage where really, sometimes I hope for that. I hope for that idealism that we reach the stage where this doesn't happen, or where we are on an equal footing where we don't have to do this for each other. But it's like saying, let the best talent move ahead, or let the best leader naturally, organically move ahead, irrespective of their gender, their situation at home. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this just reminded me of this one incident. I have only worked with women CEOs. It just so happened to be that any profession any place born I have worked under women CEOs, and I've seen that there was this delivery person who entered, and he automatically was like, "Sir, hai kya?" So he just assumed that the person in the cabin is going to be a man. And when he said that, no, the man is not there, he couldn't understand that what was happening, so he left. And it just occurred to me that all these biases, they're so integrated in us that you don't even realize that you are making this assumption, or there is a stereotype that's running in your head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's why so unconscious. Yeah.
So then this brings me to question that there are so many policies out there, right? Because like even for DNI, people are, because it's become a very important topic, everybody knows that it's not a negotiable thing anymore. So there are organizations that are coming up with policies. But then those are just paper policies, right? What do you believe that we can do to get that policy into practice when it comes to inclusion, for be it for the LGBTQI community, for women, for any minority representatives out there? How can we make these policies into practice, and at what stage should we start?
Sure. And I'll give you an example here. I knew of someone who worked with this client. This client wasn't mine at all, but another peer from my industry shared this example with me. He was working with this multinational. This company is spread across US, India, APAC, and they hired him to kind of help them create a DNI strategy and a DNI charter. While they were doing that, he kept insisting on your point that, first of all, is there enough awareness of why we are doing this? Do your people even know these things? Instead of us making a practice out of it, before we reach a practice, maybe we should do some education, some awareness. Of course, team HR, team L&D that time must have been under a sword or under some deadline. So the CHRO goes like, yeah, we'll do all of that. I'm with you. I'm very committed. We are going to have a roadmap for 2 years. But now let's start. Let's start with some activity. Let's start with some initiative that my company feels, hum kuch kar rahe. He kept saying that let education and awareness first be the initiative. Let first people see, hear, feel what is happening. See, hear, feel is an actual change management philosophy that coaches and consultants use. That pehle, let your people see what is happening. Acha, today there is a workshop on unconscious bias. Ye unconscious bias kya hai? Dikhte. Acha, today there is this talk by this para Olympian, and he's talking about an inclusive PWD workplace. Dekhte, right? First, dire dire, he kept recommending. Of course, sometimes when you are when you're fixed with a client where monies are given, if you don't uphold your integrity, you have to agree with what the client says. So he quietly went ahead and they forcefully told him to launch a same-sex insurance policy cover. Okay, this will be great. This itself will be education, and people will be like, "Arey wow, HR did this new policy. What is it?" Nafisa, more than 65% of people for a same-sex insurance cover policy. More than 65% of people in that organization nominated their wives and husbands in the actual policy. So when they uncovered this data, they had to go back to the drawing board, clarify with 65% of these team members that this is not for your husband or spouse. This is for... So can you imagine the mehnat and the undoing and the redoing and time, energy, time, cost, quality out of the window. Basic program management principles out of the window. So that's why my first suggestion is figure out first, where are you on your learning curve for DNI? Does your organization have even basic awareness and education? First start there. Then come to, okay, we educated our people. We are trying to create some awareness. Workshops, reading rooms, asynchronous learning, meet and greets, town halls, TV shows, bazaar. Like, avenues are endless. Then ideally, after a few months, again check in. Where is your public? Are they aware enough? Or have they naturally moved to analyzing? कि हाँ यार, I attended that PWD session. मुझे ऐसा नहीं बोलना था. I've realized this now. That for this little thing to happen is months and months of awareness. Analyzing चल रहा है अभी चल क्या रहा है organization. Then you move to application. But sadly, since it's a checkbox agenda, since it's an agenda for June, people directly want to go to application. Let's just learn, how do I take care of my unconscious biases? मुझे क्या बोलना है? Just teach me that. I'm like, possible hai, but for you to genuinely take all your people with you, you ideally want that as a leader of the organization, that people are aligned. Then you have to take that time and effort and take people with you. Whether galtiyan ho rahi hai, mistakes ho rahi hai, but at least that awareness is on. Na? Versus randomly introducing policies. Random. I'll give you another example. Again, this is a client where we just had a conversation, and one of my team members, Veena, she asked in the meeting, she asked the client a very simple question that, okay, y'all, this year, the importance is for DNI, and what y'all want to focus on is, they very clearly told us, our focus area for the year 2022 is we are going to hire more LGBTQ professionals, and we are going to hire more PWD professionals. Okay. Why, what, data point, pattern, but this is what they want. So Veena asks a question, oh, that's nice. So can you also tell us what are all the things that have already happened for you to reach here? So the client goes that you will be happy to know we are the first ones in XYZ state, whatever we are, let's say Karnataka, okay? They're like, we are the first ones in Karnataka who introduced neutral bathrooms, transgender bathrooms in our organization. We are the first ones to do that. From all the IT companies, we're the first one. Okay. But Feroza, what now we don't know is, how do we educate people about the bathrooms? How do we educate people about ye bathroom iske liye, ye bathroom? I'm like, okay. So sometimes organizations that work even in global teams, if your global HO, your HQ or your global counterpart, their DNI agenda is theirs. Black Lives Matters is different for us. pay parity is different. We are dealing with casteism. We are dealing with other things. So our DNI agenda has to be unique to our country, our ethos, our legal system, and our problems that we are facing before we start these policy campaigns and pahla education awareness, then analyzing, okay, where are we? Basis the education and awareness we did, have we moved the needle? What are we hearing from our people? Then let's move to policy. Let's move to, and I'm not saying that these three things can't happen simultaneously. They can, but maybe not in extremely large organizations where scale is a concern. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And education, I feel like people, all these organizations, they start the policy as a token to show that, we have so much inclusivity and we are doing so much. But they feel like educating employees is taking up a lot of resources, wherein it's where they can save a lot of resources. Right. I think just implementing, like you gave examples, those were such brilliant examples, right? They must have spent so much money in making the policies, revining and everything, and they could have just saved all of that by just educating employees into what needs to be done, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like for example, MasterCard as an organization, they were the pioneers in the industry to introduce pay parity. And this is 21 years ago. They introduced this 21 years ago as, as something that, hey, let's change this. Let's ensure across the board in all our global offices. 20 साल से चल रहा है and they are still there. You know what I mean? So it's not something.
Correct. Absolutely. Right. And because it's years of conditioning, so it will take a lot of time for people to break free from their set mindsets and set ways to actually accept and look from another perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what strategies or what approaches do you feel you can, use when it comes to training clients or working with clients of different organizations? Because I'm pretty sure you must be knowing that every organization has their own climate, they have their own personality in itself, right?
Yeah.
So what are the strategies that you use when it comes to dealing with this wide variety of organizations and the clients that you've dealt with? I mean, the number of clients you've dealt with, I'm pretty sure you must have covered all kinds of different personalities that is out there.
Yeah. So, when I started my entrepreneurship journey, I would always first tell myself, okay, yaar, I have been on both sides of the table. I have also been that client working with vendors, working with boutique organizations, मुझे ये चाहिए, ये क्यों नहीं? So I would always think from that, okay, if I become that vendor, if I become that coaching company, training company, I first need to solve for the struggle my client is going through or the struggle I went through. So that's why I know I'm turning red while saying this, but in March 2020, when I started on my own, there is nobody in my team. I have not decided anything as yet. I have just started coaching and I've been doing that, right? Dhamadham. Then I go like, Acha, abhi this is picking up. If this is picking up, I need to start establishing my credibility with my clients. So I hired a brand strategist. There is no team. There is no idea what I'm going to do. But I'm like, brand strategist ko we will hire first. So I hired Sujata Moraes and she's like, okay. I'm like, listen, I have a vision. I want to start my own company. This. And she's like, but there is a company. Have you launched it? I'm like, all of that will happen because if I need to do this, I need to first deeply be confident and secure with the brand that I am taking out. My clients know me from my Dale Carnegie days, ILFS days, Big 92.7 FM days, Jombay days. So there will be like these, thousands of clients who will know me. Ki, "Acha, I work with you here." But who am I? And what do I stand for, where I can confidently say that, hey, this is what we do, this is what we are good at, and here is why you need to work with us. So, a lot of focus on what should our organization stand for. What should be the brand values that in every interaction a client gets to experience? So, usually, what founders spend time in doing after 1 year or 2 years, I spent enough time on that in the first 3 months, and that's where we came up with very simple three brand values. Relatability. Today, in this madness world of over information and zero wisdom, uh, can you relate to me? Can I relate to your problem? Only then we will talk or we will go ahead. If you and I are able to relate to each other, then maybe it will make you feel, these chaps, these people are authentic. So authenticity is another brand. Everybody you meet in my team, they are who they are. There is no changing that. There is no like you become this one, become that. Because that is when you are able to extend trust. So relatability, authenticity, and trust. These are three things I am so anal about with my brand and my team, that this is the experience every client, whether they know us or they don't know us, they should get that in that experience. Whether it is you speaking to Veena trying to fix this, or emailers going, or finance. So that's what I'm usually coaching and even guiding young entrepreneurs, that before you get crazy about ye business lana hai, ye karna hai, iske sath, like, are you first clear about what you are doing and why you are doing it? Like, are you coming from a place of security in fully knowing that this is what we are good at as a brand, as an organization, and this is what we are going to see? Because literally, Nafisa, like, I know you have used the word, do you have any strategy? Do you have any technique? No. This is the strategy, this is the technique, that just genuinely upholding the values we stand for and ensuring in every interaction we have with clients, these come out naturally so that there is trust.
Yeah, and I think it shows also. I mean, for any kind of service industry, I think to have that relatable factor and trust is what speaks. Because for products, you try and you understand whether it's working and all. Service, I think, and the fact that it's your entire thing has been built organically, I think your three values actually in itself speaks volumes of your talent, your knowledge, and everything. Because like you said, coaching is something that requires, it's not a very well accepted thing as of now, but then still there are so many people that come to you that have actually taken up your service. So I'm sure that three factors that you mentioned are very prominent in the work that you do, or just in the interaction as well.
Thank you.
So
Thank
then
you.
what message would you like to share to the employers and the leaders of the future? Any message that you have for them?
I think this is especially for leaders, because they are spending day and night really with that group. And I'll also talk about this silly thing sometimes that people do. When they speak to coaches, they'll be like, Acha, have you trained at a senior leadership level? I'm like, yes, I've done that my whole life. You can XYZ. And my team and I, we have a very simple philosophy. We were like, you can speak to our clients. You want a testimonial, go to LinkedIn. Majority are there. But of course, in the nature of work that we do, we sign NDAs. We are sometimes not allowed to talk about certain contracts, certain partnerships. But the ones we are allowed to do, we're like, speak to the clients. That's where comes from a place of humility. Right? Baat hi kar lo, that's the best. Sometimes clients will come back saying, Acha, Feroza, we spoke to this client. You've done very good work. You have to coach their senior leaders. But Feroza, we want to bring to you our mid management, not our senior leaders. So can you reduce the price to the mid-level leaders? I'm like, Coaching is coaching.
Correct.
Whether the person is a senior leader, a first time leader, a mid management leader, you have come to me because that person is important for you. Whether the person is a critical role, high potential, right? So let's first of all please stop looking at coaching at just so weirdly as if like it's a product at like some different levels. Like it's taken me a decade to learn this. So you are paying me for my potential and the mehnat that I've done in this decade, and not because the person whom you're talking about. So I think fundamentally ये इंडिया में understand होना थोड़ा time लगेगा, and that's okay, like that's all right. And in that experience, whichever leader I have worked with, and really I have been so blessed and grateful that I have got to learn so much about, okay, if I do this somewhere, and it's like my coaching journeys are reciprocal, but at the same time, they have that, let me teach you how to self coach. Like that's the vision of our organization, that let us accept that all of us are going to be work in progress. ये milestone बाजी नहीं है, ये goal बाजी नहीं है. One day you will be a good listener. Maybe the next day you are PMSing. You may not be a good listener, but that doesn't mean you suck. It's work in progress. And if it's work in progress, you just need to make these chotu tweaks and not like some, and that's why I always believe with leaders, it's never the big things that you say, but it's always those little things that you commit on that make a difference. So that has like really been my genuine ask. Okay, Baba, first let's focus not on the big talk that you do, but what are really those small things that you are doing every day that could get consistent, that could get better. So yeah.
That's wonderful. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a great message for everyone, not just employers and leaders out there, for I think for everyone to just view yourself as a work in progress and focus on the little things and keep learning every day. And exactly, I think the little the effort we put, I think in the long run, when you look back, you realize how far along you've come because you worked on those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, it's like saying brushing for 2 minutes a day doesn't make any difference. 1 minute kar lo, 3 minute kar lo, 2 minutes. But brushing for 2 minutes every day makes sense. Makes, so that's like that slight pivot here. Show me how to reach my ikigai. Help me understand that. I'm like, first I want to know what you do during the day, what you do at night. First, let's figure out the basics. Then let's get there.
Absolutely. So this brings me to my last question for this interview. What are some of the lessons from your life that you would want everyone to know? Something that we can learn from your lessons, your life experience.
I think one really big one that I'm still learning, and it still shows up for me to deeply learn it, that trusting and taking a risk are literally two sides of the same coin. And a lot of people whom I have worked with have heard me say this, that trust is nothing if you don't extend it. Trust ko khud mein rakh ke what you are going to do. Where is it going to help? Who is it helping? Trust has to be extended. When you extend trust, there is absolute risk in it. Will she deliver? Will I need to micromanage? She's promised me she's going to send me this. He said he loves me, he will marry me. Now, what do I do? So, trust needs to be extended. And when we extend trust, usme full risk. So, similarly, when people don't want to take any risk, that tells me that you don't trust yourself at all. Kya? So this fine balance or this fine dance in helping people genuinely figuring out their trust measures and what are they okay risking, or this whole piece we call your trade-offs in life, they are going to add up. at some point. So not looking at like, okay, I want to get better at trusting people. Okay, then we will also need to understand how you're taking risks, why you're not taking risks, or because I never take risks, I'm just very controlled like a whole. Then also let's figure out why you're not trusting yourself. So I think this little piece for me also, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, like I'm still there and I'm still learning this little pull push.
Wonderful. That's a really beautiful advice for everyone out there. Thank you so much, Feroza, doing this. I absolutely enjoyed our conversation, and I think personally, I have learned so much from your interaction, and your perspective on things is just extremely refreshing. So, thank you so much for taking out the time and doing so. Any last minute words, anything that you would like to share before we end it?
I think we all are a work in progress. The sooner we realize that, the sooner we will stop doing these nonsensical milestone wale 5 ways to get the perfect partner we're looking for. 4 ways to manage conflict at work. We're never going to be these things versus really figuring out who you are in the moment. And that itself is a journey. Like jokingly, I joke about this that nobody is going to give you a reward for self-awareness. So if you are going around seeking self-awareness, reflecting, introspecting, कोई आके आपको award नहीं देने वाला है. It's not rewarding. It is for you only to maybe figure that out. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm pretty sure everyone who's going to see this video, they are going to take away so much from this interview. Once again, thank you so much for doing this and have a great day.
Thank you, Nafisa, and thank you.